Francisco, you mentioned, hey, the tech billionaires want nicer homes. But, talking about possible endgame here, let's talk about the WeWork IPO. Their documents show that they're losing $5,200 per customer, which is 28 times what Uber loses per customer. So in other words, the business model of San Francisco driving house prices are to lose as much per sale as possible. And in the case of WeWork, they lose $5,200 per customer. And so is there going to be a day reckoning there? I mean, eventually, if you're generating exponential losses ad infinitum, it's going to be hard to sustain that for buying multi-million-dollar homes, Wolf.
The thinking around here is that, we're approaching the end. This is bigger than 1999 was. The reset will be bigger locally. The nation might not feel it that much, but it will be a local thing for sure. And where these companies that keep burning cash, the companies that are 10 years old, they have billions in revenues. They keep burning cash, and it's okay for a startup to burn cash, but these are not startups. These are mature companies, and the business model they have is just expand, and no matter what the cost, and investors have been funding this. Now, if investors are no longer willing to fund this, these companies are going to run out of money, and they're having to cut back, and that's already the case. I mean, we're hearing that now constantly on different job boards elsewhere. That there's unofficial hiring freezes in place in different companies like that they're cutting back. The projects getting curtailed in the Bay Area. So, from an architect, it was kind of the same thing. It's a project that had 5 phases. They're finishing phase 1, and they're slowing phase 2 down, and they're canceling phase 3 and through 5. And so this is now happening. And I think in the Bay Area, we've sort of bumped into that point where it can't go on like this forever.
Right. We're at that 1990.com bubble inflection point. NASDAQ lost a quick $5 trillion. I was working on technology at that time. San Francisco has more billionaires per capita than anywhere on Earth, but has a homeless population to rival any third world country. Considering Silicon Valley is also the epicenter of virtue signaling, they love to talk a good game. We just came back from Detroit, where the Quicken Empire, they put $5-6 billion into downtown, and I don't see any human feces on the street. There's not a homeless population in the downtown Detroit. They reinvested in their own community because it was an act of really self-preservation by helping the community. How come San Francisco billionaires are so greedy and short-sighted and virtue-signaling idiots that they prefer to wallow in human feces than to clean up their own mess, Wolf?
The big difference between Detroit and San Francisco, one is the cost of housing. In Detroit is one of the lowest in the country in terms of major cities. And I have a older friend who left the Bay Area in 2009 and paid $70,000 in cash for a huge loft in downtown Detroit. And this is $70,000 by a garage in San Francisco. So it's Detroit has lost a lot of population. It's in a very different phase of its life cycle.
But Wolf, relative to incomes, the house prices are pari passu, to use a Wall Street term. In other words, you've got one's a smaller, but the scaling is the same. The amount of relative income to house prices, you can map that and can say it's relatively the same. The question is not relative house prices versus salary. The question is why in Detroit do a highly successful billionaire corporation choose to help their community, where in Silicon Valley they choose to literally defecate on their community.
Some of that is a little exaggerated too. I live it, and so I don't really have to wade deep through feces and needles. There are in some streets, but they're not everywhere. But it is a huge problem. Homelessness in San Francisco is 1% of the population. That is a huge problem there everywhere. Most of them are polite, nice people, but it's just crazy, the homelessness problem here. And you're right. I mean, the city has tried to deal with it. Has spent $500 million on it, and it's just getting worse.
All right, we gotta go, man. We're out of time, but we'll pick it up next time. I get your point. Let's say goodbye. Thanks for being on the Kieser Report, Wolf.
Thanks for having me, Max.
All righty, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kieser Report. Thanks, Kieser. Stacey Herbert, like to our guest, Wolf Richter of WolfStreet.com. He's got an excellent podcast, too. If you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Kieser Report or KieserReport.com. Till next time. Bye, y'all.
Nice and roomy, but they don't fall off.
Oh my god. You guys, are you serious about this?
These are ridiculous.
Okay. Okay, so that's the end of the Kieser Report. And anyway, let's stop that one. And let's see. Let's do this one. Not that one either. Okay.
If a civil war happened in the future in the U.S., would it benefit the right wing? I think it's clear that it would cause a lot of death, starvation, disease. Parents would have to watch their children suffering and dying. Husbands, their wives, children, their parents. The level of suffering would be unprecedented. People today aren't prepared for this kind of chaos.
Unprecedented in his life, in his conception of American Civil War, unprecedented globally. Meaning, is his argument when he says this, is it in fact, like, to what extent is he talking that he would say the word unprecedented to describe human suffering other than, like, a personal phenomenological interpretation? You know, like, having to smell a fire that goes off in your city, right, because it invades your space, right? And that would be unprecedented to a certain type of person, let's say, right? So it would be an anomaly. Anyway, let's go back to this.
Not prepared to pay this kind of price for political victory. And part of winning a civil war is having popular support. So if you go in callously thinking about political victory, and you have a mind to, if you privately planned on being part of the red forces or the rebel forces in this scenario, if you would plan to take out the power grid, disrupt food supplies, cut.
Okay, so all of a sudden, like, the rebel group are Luddites. Like, he's describing what a Luddite would do in terms of trying to dismantle certain areas, right? How to dismantle certain chains of supply, right? And I think what he's saying is that the toll of the Luddites, just on a population that's being fed that they're at civil war because massively, let's say, bus routes and train routes and other routes are threatened, if not outwardly, I guess you'd say, like, thwarted and warned such that the people on the train are not dying, right? That whoever's running the cargo or whoever's running the people or people as cargo, right? That those people are warned to stop, so they're not dead, right? But then, like, the issues with supply chains, like, anyway, we'll let him continue. Kind of like if you disrupted trucking services throughout the nation. That would be interesting. Like, there was a trucking strike in the midst of a civil war that occurred that just shut down whole roads and whole goods and services being transacted type of thing.
Lines, things like that. How would the general public look at you? If you don't care about the cost, you don't care about the suffering, how would they look at you? Because if they don't support you, you're not going to have logistical support, you're not going to win. And anything that you get at the end of the day as a concession from the establishment, or if somehow you replace the entire establishment, would that be lasting if the people thought that you were heartless, callous?
I thought on that last video that maybe the guy, even though he's a foreigner and he's probably a well-to-do banker that MaxKieser was interviewing, that maybe he had taken root in San Francisco and that MaxKieser was like, hey, you got all this insight. Why, compared to Detroit, why don't you go in there and clean up this local problem, right? Like, you got all this insight in what's going on politically, internationally, with these international movements of money and blocking, and it's just what Argentina does. It's run of the mill. They overextend, I guess, the sales on their bonds, or they sell them and then they sell off the contract, and then they don't go through, and then it chokeholds or something.
It is the world we're living in. People have the sentiments that they do. Most people are not ready for this kind of sacrifice. Just something to note before looking at particular strategic issues for the right. So many people think...
At what point in time when your life and livelihood is under threat are you prepared for it? Right? Is it just that you see it coming and that you're saying most people don't see this coming?
That the right wing would obviously...
Or is this merely hyperbole off the metaphor, off an idea? It's a critique. It's a temperament. It's a tempering of this guy who he's slowly creeping against, who is a Propetarianism founder, right? Who has all these like rational, reductive notions of how the world actually does work. That is kind of like a logical positivist, where he believes the words and the logic are isomorphically matched to the universe in the way that he sees that they are. And then he conveniently ignores the z-axis, I'll say, of time. That somehow everything is contemporary, not traditional. As if people forget where they came from very, very quickly, or where they came from even in the history of their life, right? They're less likely to do that than perhaps this Kirk Doolittle dude thinks. So he propagates this thing, ignoring the history of time, and then talking about the way he thinks that what's the most proper way that the world should be put together. So it's a type of organized idealism, which me, if you know me, since I do a book on contradiction and deconstruction philosophers, right? Not destruction philosophers. There's a lot of people like, yeah, you're postmodernist, or you've been influenced by them, they're postmodernists. I'll argue with anybody on the benefits of intersectionality in terms of like legal structure and relative measurement to a power hierarchy, right? I'll argue anybody against that says intersectionality isn't a thing, or intersectionality isn't a legal argument.
Win because they control most of the land, they control most of the guns, they have most of the former military personnel, and they have most active military personnel. But you have to remember, with the military, the higher up the chain of command you go, the more establishment you are. Not necessarily the more left-wing, but not every person who would vote Republican is willing to go against the chain of command, go against their orders for their ideological commitments. And how is the conflict portrayed? That has to do with communication. When it first begins, there's a period of time where it's uncertain if it's simply domestic terrorism or if it's a civil war. Remember back to 2011, with the beginning of the Syrian civil war, people weren't sure what to call it. Was this a civil war? Was this an insurgent terrorist force? The same would apply in America. People wouldn't just know immediately that a civil war is happening and they would know who to side with. No, in all likelihood, all of the major media outlets will...
Well, okay, so why is he propagating? Okay, he's going to propagate now a theory as to why most outlets would presume to not propagate the idea massively that there is a civil war, right? Meaning, if the quote-unquote domestic terrorism, in terms of its frequency, rose and rose and rose and rose, such that it became a type of obvious insurrection, then the news can start propagating that, right? And then at one point, instead of somebody on the right like Mark Dyke just kind of laughing it up or putting on a puppy dog face when he talks about how solemn he is about these deaths, shootings, he rarely tackles those, right? I'm just mentioning him, right? Anyway, point is this is AArvoll, AA. What you nuts? God, where am I reading? AArvoll channel. that you're listening to. But anyway, the point is the puppy dog face of the right would melt in the face of an insurrection. And meaning all I'm also saying is that this guy's saying, AArvoll saying, more than likely, right, it's going to be this. But to me, if they already know who people are, they already got a stat on what's going on with people, and they're rolling out the 5G to really affect, not only pulse waves, apparently, but maneuvering drones. It's like drone space, airspace. It's well-controlled information data processing that apparently can also affect very quickly and influence heavily individual behavior and individual, information propagation, trending, putting forth trends of information in front of somebody within the computer, not. Anyway, I'm not going to talk Matrix. Here we go, back to this.
Look at whoever was initiating force as terrorists, and that's the impression that most military personnel would have of the situation. The context in which suddenly a full-scale civil war is happening, and everyone knows that a civil war is happening, and all of the military personnel could then make an evaluation: will I support the rebels or the establishment? That doesn't happen.
Okay, so necessarily he's saying that the military, anyone that is a Luddite is necessarily a rebel to the establishment, and the people in the military understand that they're established in the government. That's why he's referring to these other people as the rebels. Like he's already categorized them in terms of who they are, and yet let's see what else he's got.
Until the war is already on, so you won't have the military support at all in the beginning, is what I'm saying. And later on, when more variables are known, where is the information coming from that military people are getting? It's coming from their chain of command, and so it will be controlled. And these people are masters, and I mean the establishment, masters of propaganda, psychology, psychological warfare. It's very unlikely that the right wing, in my opinion, is going to have the support of the military generally. And remember, if they do have the support of some military personnel, they're not going to have the support of the higher-ups, meaning...
Okay, so basically here, you can hear in his argument, there's an eisegesis of his own speculation. Like, look, you're not going to get the support of the right wing. Like the right wing is not necessarily on all the levels of the hierarchy. The right wing doesn't control all those levels, right? And so he's suggesting, he's first of all suggesting that, and then he's also suggesting that as things go higher up, it's going to move towards the left, or that the right couldn't count on some sort of rightist recent political notion of what's going on to adhere to some sort of a rightist politic, and then he'll intersect this with the idea of propagandism up here. I already listened to this earlier. I just thought you guys might enjoy it while I'm paying.
They're not going to have the high-level communications and logistical tools that the military possesses. Those things are controlled. Those resources are controlled by people at the top of the hierarchy. You might have isolated instances. Soldiers driving their tanks off the base to go join the rebels. Things like that likely would happen. But, people are generally pretty pro-establishment.
Hey guys, let's go join the rebels. They're blowing up shit. And everyone else is pretty much pro-establishment. Like when I looked around at the other dogs inside of the locker room, part of the platoon, right? Like, they're all like, yeah, man, we're all in line, man. Yeah, except for old Johnny Drinker down there who always chucked the whiskey. That shit-kicking darker fella. Boy, he really laid it home to the sergeant that one day. And, man, I bet he's one of those guys who go, hey, guys, let's run and go join the rebels. And then he'd be like Ray and Luke and Finn. He might be the Finn character running away from the stormtrooper. Anyway, you guys might want to check out High Man in a Castle. Oh, Rev, if you're watching this, you know, Revelation News. I will get to you. We will do something shortly, interview-wise. Just mention it. So.
In any context, people are generally pretty authoritarian, especially military people. And if you don't have military experience, which I do, you don't know the kind of conditioning that people go through. Former military is a different concern, but anyway, that's just a point on the military issue.
Okay, well, now look, the whole argument about whether or not a man can know the pain of childbirth, or whether or not a woman can know, and the idea of this, what it's like to step in someone else's shoes, right? So this idea that if one doesn't belong to the military, right? If you think, you know, like, hey, these groups of people that go through this, they're more likely to really understand because they went through it, right? Joining the military. And those that don't, they're just of a different class. Like, they don't know what it's like. But do they know what it's like? Can they not read a manual and compare it to their hard bodily labors, their own disciplines, their own yogas? Is there no structure in one's possible history of people who worked out, right, such that they could read a military manual and having never joined the military or any of its branches, you know, Coast Guard or something like that? Like, would that be, you know, like Wittgenstein argued, like, hey, language is public, right? And but this seems to be some sort of like common phenomenological categorization realism going on the part of AArvoll here, right? Because supposedly having ran for a while in a track, getting really tired and knowing how long that is, and then doing it again and again and again in a disciplined manner, and eating a lot of pig slop and potatoes, right? Getting buff, right? Without ever joining the military. Seems like something he'd think, hey man, you just wouldn't know, so therefore.
People think that's the clincher that the military is generally right wing, so they would support the right wing. But that confuses the issue of the beginning of the conflict. Is it known that a civil war is happening? Is it known what the motivations of the rebels even are? Or is the information being filtered through media propaganda, military intelligence that's twisting facts? There's a big fog of war component, and that's most of these points that I'm going to go through. The fog of war component is not being factored into some of the analyses that I've seen, like John Mark's analysis. In many regards, it's numerically accurate, right? It points to possible paths towards victory, but it is not considering all the factors. And you have to remember, when it comes to these sensitive security issues, the establishment puts out disinformation. So you have to look at this stuff with a skeptical eye. Are you really an expert to the point where you know this kind of analysis is 100% accurate, or is it leaving some critical?
When this happens, the media does this, and he whines at the end of that. They put out disinformation. So, Eric, I don't mean this at all as an attack. I really enjoyed the critique, to be honest. I'm just using some of the techniques of criticism that I happen to be good at. And one of them is saying, like, is there cases where the media doesn't put out misinformation and that they're putting out real information? Or is there always going to be a dissonance of information, right? Like you say, doubt the information and then reapproach it. Say that later. Anyway, back to you.
Details out. I suggest it is leaving critical details out, particularly regarding coordination, communication, modeling, and definition. So coordination, how does the right wing coordinate in the event of this conflict? In the beginning, people who, it's often talked about there will be like a gun grab. The left wing is constitutionally determined to piss off the right, and eventually they'll overreach somehow, and the right wing will react, but they won't react all in concert. They're not, ants in a colony. They're individuals making decisions based on their own self-interest at any given point in time.
Oh, look, the emergency system that's connected to all cell phones, if that shit comes down nationally, like it did in Hawaii that one time, like boom, that hits everyone. That's unprecedented right there, right? That could pretty much guarantee that whoever's got control of that phone alert and information system nationwide has a lot of power in what it is you're suggesting.
So how do you coordinate the initiation of force? Wherever it first occurs, it's going to be looked at as domestic terrorism. The early adopters of this strategy are risking a lot. Now, once things are at a certain level, then it becomes less of a risk for someone to join the rebel forces, as their victory becomes more likely or is esteemed to be more likely. But that relates to the communication issue as well, because most of the communication...
Now, here's the problem. Now he's talking about the rebel forces that are mostly made up of non-military people that maybe have a couple military deserters or something, right? And now him being in the military, I think, tarnishes his view of what populations of non-military grouped left-leaning, if you will, to contrast his notion that the right imply that its leftists actually could move, right? You could even frame it as, oh, well, that's what Antifas would do, right? And so I'm just saying, like, it sounds like kind of a misappropriation of categorization here.
That general, ordinary people receive will be coming from the establishment. The right-wing militias and, revolutionary forces won't be able to distribute propaganda except through leaflets and things like that, and that'll be fairly limited. So what I'm saying is most people will have the perception that the establishment is going to win and that the revolutionaries are terrorists and white supremacists and evil people. So you will be fighting that battle. I don't think the coordination of right-wing people just happens. We're not psychically connected in an obvious way. So the initiation of force, also that same factor at the end, right? If, say, John Mark gets his way and you get the establishment to replace the U.S. Constitution with the Proprietarian Constitution, does most of the right wing see that as a victory condition? Because they have to be coordinated in accepting the settlement that happens at the end of the war. They have to accept that the war is over. So you really need a chain of command. You really need, some kind of leadership for this function to be carried out, for the beginning and the end of the war to even make sense. And then in the middle of the war, for resources to be redistributed, for forces to be allocated, all of that coordination. How is it happening? What are the communication technologies you use? And what communication technologies do you have that the government or the establishment can't simply suppress? Very few resources, I think, and few people are familiar with these techniques. If you think you can use some form of shortwave radio or whatever it is you think you can use, very few people have access to that sort of technology and the skills to actually use it. So what's the technology of coordinating these forces? And then what's the actual human capital? What's the hierarchy that you're using? How do you coordinate these people? An important thing to note is that leadership quality people are very few in number. And most of the people on the right wing with leadership potential already have a following. They're already politically active. And this is something that I've discussed with Kurt, and he acknowledges the leaders of this kind of movement, of the right wing in a civil war, if that would happen, the leaders are the people that we know today as right-wing leaders, the people who have a presence online, who have a following. Now, those people are clearly known by the government. And in the event of a civil war, they would all be assassinated. Do you think they can't carry out assassinations? No, of course they can. They're not. So you do not want to assume incompetence on the part of your enemy. That's like rule one of warfare generally. You want to assume that you're being given disinformation first, and then check it carefully to see if maybe it's accurate. Like a lot of right-wing people see the impossibility of an electoral victory down the line, and they want something. They want a solution, and they see someone like John Mark come out with his analysis, and they say, yes, without critically analyzing it. You have to remember these basic principles of warfare. Don't assume your enemy is incompetent. Don't assume the information that you're getting is fully accurate. Maybe it's serving someone else's interests. So the leaders would be killed. If you're a right-wing leader, if you're in communication with Kurt Doolittle, don't expect commands from the proprietarians. Don't expect, help from your brothers in arms on the fringe right wing. Expect SWAT teams, expect drone strikes, expect to be killed. They know who you are. They know where you live. They know everything about you. If you follow Kurt, I'm talking about the people who are politically active. And if you look at the training material for people, there's a job in the Army. I forget what the MOS is or what the job title is.
William Burroughs once said something like, poor guy, he sold his soul for a strap-on.
Specifically, but it's about basically concentration camps, right? The FEMA camps, things like that. In the event of a national emergency, people will get grouped into these camps, and they are the training materials there for them to target potential revolutionaries, to target people who have radical thoughts, and to isolate them, get rid of them. So that same school of thought is around now. They know all of the fringe people. The really active people are very small in number. The total number of people that I know operate the sphere similar to where I operate online, total number of active people is somewhere in the neighborhood, maybe of 100,000. The really active, well-informed people, the government can kill 100,000 people. They can track 100,000 people. This is their land. They have everything they need to cut the head off the snake early. So coordination is a big difficulty because of that. The leadership will be killed. You don't have the technology to coordinate. And that, obviously ties in with communication. How are you communicating, and how is your message being communicated to the public? Leaflets, like, how do you propagandize? How do you gain popular support? People don't just know what's happening. They know because someone's telling them what's happening. And the establishment has all the communication networks, and the fringe right wing would have none. You don't want to assume, you don't want to err on the side of optimism and assume that the right wing generally, meaning every man and woman who voted for Donald Trump, you don't want to assume that they are so firmly committed to an as yet undefined right-wing ideology. They're obviously not committed to libertarianism. They're committed to who knows what. It's not exactly clear. But you don't want to assume they're so committed that you'd get these millions and millions of people just joining the revolution, sacrificing their own lives and safety and going against the government. Like, the level of commitment is unlikely to be that high. And Kurt obviously knows this. You'll have a small number of people, thousands maybe, involved in such a revolutionary scenario. If you think that's sufficient, I think you're just being naive. Modeling, this has to do with that fog of war. So if you can't coordinate and communicate, how do you know what's happening? How do you know that the war is even still on? How do you know where to go? Like, there's just, you have individual terrorists going around.
So now he assumes that if there's like a low population, like post-war, there was a huge volatile something that went on and everyone thought it was a war and it was projected and acted upon as if it was a war, that somehow one would not know, if information grids fell down, whether or not the war was still going on or not, like outside of a localized area. But then I thought, how many grids, like how many independent networks are there actually? And I thought, well, maybe there's no independent networks, right? But I thought the whole Snowden thing, and Brazil's happily changing their router structure to kind of take over the highest information set of what those routers and ISPs and so forth are doing, right? Maybe phone systems, maybe that's all linked. Maybe the globe is all linked. But I think Brazil like decoupled themselves from, the U.S. apparatus of information gathering to a large extent.
Blowing up railroad lines and bridges. That's all that you can effectively do. You can disrupt the activity of the establishment, but the military has tech that they don't need railroad lines and the internet. They have their own internet. They have their own communications networks that you can't touch, that you cannot destroy. So the enemy won't be harmed ultimately. And there are contingencies like the FEMA camps for the general population. Just something to consider. And this definition issue is a critical one. John Mark likes to conflate the right wing generally with proprietarianism. Like this right wing revolt will happen, this war will happen, the right wing, right America.
Well, One way to do encodings in a blockchain world would be to use something like an encrypted blockchain. Supposedly, if you think everything's known, from a God point of view, right? I can grant that, right? Then, but if you don't think everything's known by everyone, every human, all the players on a human pragmatic scale, right? Then why not possibly presume that there's gaps and oversights in knowledge? And the remainder of my thought I forgot. Let me back this up a smidge. Maybe I'll get back on the train.
General population, just something to consider. And this definition issue is a critical one. John Mark likes to conflate the right wing generally with parliamentarianism. Like this right wing revolt will happen, the civil war will happen, the right wing, Red America will win, and then there'll be an opportunity for political reformulation. Throw out the Constitution, bring in the proprietarian Constitution, bring in the proprietarian order. But people aren't signing up for that with a right-wing revolution. Most likely you're going to get some right-wing demagogue who's really just a vehicle for the establishment anyway. Those are the people who are able to reach the masses, the people who have the logistical support of the establishment. They control the information, they control the perception of who is right-wing and who's not right-wing. You don't just know that someone's right-wing because they claim to be. You'll have someone like Donald Trump, some demagogic figure, claiming to be the savior. And if the establishment wants the right wing to win this civil war scenario.
Okay, maybe Donald Trump's the chosen one, but I might, because I'm a candidate, that if someone was going to claim being the savior, I'd want that title, right? Because like being this overgrown messiah, well past the age of 33 this time around. Boy, I put my sword away and everything. Picked up a paintbrush. Seen how to do some brush strokes, some tail feather brush strokes on the canvas.
If they want the right wing to feel that they've won, they'll have that kind of figure ready, and they'll have a political reformulation ready that won't ultimately harm their interests. The elites are global. You're not going to destabilize their power. Their power is really not fathomable to most people. They have billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, resources all over the world. You don't want to waste your time planning for a civil war. You don't want... Hopefully some of this made sense to you. Most people don't listen critically. Most people are emotionally invested, and they think like idiots, right? Most people do not think critically about these sorts of things.
Okay, and so here, what I think is happening, being a non-military guy myself, right, think that his exposure to military technology was so overwhelmingly unfathomable to him, just the might that governments and the higher-ups actually do have, the actual engineering, insight, secrets, quadruple agent secrets, globally, space, outer space, space cadet, that's for aliens. It's not for China. It's not about us. It's about the other aliens. The Martians were pissing off. We're disrupting them, sending shit. It's like flicking their planet. Anyway, but who knows? Like him saying, well, not an obvious spiritual connection, or kind of using an apophysis, or the negation, implying the negation, or stating a negative, it implies a positive. In that same respect, one could say, we're not alone in terms of powers that be, and note that Elon Musk even talks to the powers that be when he's launching.
About strategic things. So hopefully you were able to really think about it, because your future might depend on your perception of this issue. And specifically, I don't support talking about civil war. I don't support thinking about civil war. I don't support crafting political strategies that hinge upon a successful civil war. Instead, I put forward that we ought to, conservative people, traditional-minded people ought to establish networks, legal networks now, educational institutions now, schools, specifically schools, communication networks, so like social media, and communities.
So the reason he wants a community is because then he can control the surveillance of the community, and then he can condition people down a certain ethos that takes on some sort of relative air of white nationalism, perhaps. Eric isn't entirely cut off the tail of his entailments with perceptions of race opposed to character, of trait, and that kind of thing. But then schools, maybe digital schools, maybe certain allowances, kind of its own hierarchical priestly class put on by Eric. He's one of the top gurus running the school. Right, we got a lot more to hear from this guy in the future.
Those all can be established currently. I've made steps on my part to contribute to those things, but of course, people are prone to be distracted by false collectivizing, by saying you're part of this huge right-wing struggle and let's focus on this national thing instead of changing your individual life. Like, be realistic. You have two options. Have faith in a mass civil war that's going to change everything with one, dramatic action, or like actually start living in a different way, maybe move with people who share your values, engage in academic research. Like, how did the left come to prominence?
Okay, so this whole people who share your values, like, okay, now this, I would imagine, is a type of talking point, just kind of a meme. Share your values, the phrase share your values is too truncated. It itself is a category that's being applied, but it's applied in the same way that religious groups can say, oh, share your values. But he could be, when he says share your values, he might mean, oh, yeah, I'm generally a traditional Republican. No, I'm an anarcho-primitivist. No, I'm, X, Y, and Z, right? And so this whole idea of share your values and this idea of categorization of those who couldn't know because they're not in the military and those who could know because maybe they were married to someone in the military and they got the info, they sensed the relationship, as the spouse of, right? That could echo, I guess, into their knowledge set as a secondhand somebody or another, such that Eric isn't able to just make discrete categories of exclusion based on other people. And I say that because dissonantly, a discrete category coming back would say, share your values, that even his most intimate partner, his wife, his family, do not necessarily share his values. Like, he's probably got a few very particular personal values that the other partner doesn't have, right? Which makes them different in some remarkable but non-significant way in terms of the way he's just kind of generally spitballing share your values.
Part of it was the Frankfurt School. Institutions like that are actually relevant. They control the academia, they control the education of the youth. Those sorts of things matter. So you could get involved in that. You could start a school. You could start a community with like-minded people. But that would mean changing your habits, giving up your addictions, working in your individual life, right? Have faith in this big dramatic event, or change your life and work hard. Now, people don't like this. They don't like seeing that they are personally responsible. You have to remember, the world is going to hell in a lot of ways, but the whole world is.
Now here he is, once again, he's generalizing something. People don't, he was talking about, in order to do this, you'd have to give up your own, and people don't. And at this point, I thought, God, is Eric just talking about himself now? Or does he think he's actually describing a huge swath of humans? And if so, is he generalizing about more humans than perhaps he should be generalizing about? Like, who is he describing this? And what am I describing in this?
A lot of the world is. You have to put yourself in a situation where you will be okay. And you want to put your community in that kind of situation. That means planning. So you do want to prepare, to plan for violent events. You want to be in a good situation, but you don't want to depend on some big, final, dramatic struggle. You want to struggle here and now and every day, and that's the path to victory. That's just a general rule in life. If you have two options, one is quick and dirty and dramatic and satisfying intuitively, and you have one that's like tedious and you have to keep going back to it. Likely this one is going to lead to prosperity. This one will lead to a short-term high and long-term unproductivity. So that's about what I wanted to say. I think it's worth noting that I have made videos against propertarianism at an ideological level before. I think my critiques still stand. And I did offer to debate anyone from the propertarian camp. That first video I made got over 10,000 views. And no one, not a single person who considers themselves a propertarian, offered to debate me. I made the challenge. No one.
Well, perhaps the things that Doolittle is putting out as a response to you in text has subdued or convinced people that you were missing the mark, that your critiques were missing the mark, and hence a debate with you would be unproductive or dissatisfying because you were missing certain contentions. So what I would do if I was you, if I was advising you, if you really want to take this on with the guy, go through everything step by step of his in a video and make discrete, very, very penetrating arguments about what you think fundamentals are in lieu of a debate. Like show him what your cards are. Maybe keep a few master cards up the sleeve if you need to. But otherwise, why not just pinpoint this? I mean, I know you're all chalkboard. I'm kind of that. I mean, look at me do this manually. Where's my digipad?
Took me up on it. I think because they see that they would lose. Even Kurt knows that he would lose. Kurt doesn't have a solution to this coordination issue, to all of the leadership being assassinated right in the beginning. I've talked to him personally, in person. I've talked to him about this issue, and he doesn't have a solution. He says, well, that's why we just have to act together all at once quickly. That's what he told me. Well, how are you going to coordinate people to act all at once and everybody jump on board this boat, this suicidal boat of revolution and civil war? Anyway, it's ridiculous. So Kurt doesn't have a solution to that. People on the proprietarian side can't debate my points. If somebody out there would like to, I'm still open to it.
See, maybe I'm not clear as to what your points are. Because I'm not trying to get into the middle of your thing with him. I just noticed your thing with him and then read some of his things, and so that ignorance of the history of time is some sort of like stigma of epistemology that's incoherent is kind of a huge fucking oversight on that dickwad's proprietarian philosophy. At least whatever the buttress background support was. That's pretty weak.
But don't be fooled by this Civil War talk. It's not productive. Now, you can prepare, right? You can plan for a violent conflict in the future. In fact, you should. You should live somewhere safe. You should have food stockpiled. You should have ammunition. You should have networks of people that could convert into defensive networks if need be. But you shouldn't hang your hat on this kind of contingency. You don't want your strategy to depend on something out of your hands. You want to take control of it. So that's why I have a school that I'm starting. It's online. It's just a philosophy school currently, but I think that's the core.
By philosophy school, I think you might mean a web page where there's some videos with some synopsis treatment, some basic philosophy that he would like to inculcate. Or maybe he's read it and he believes he's apprehended it. Outside of like becoming a philosophy major per se, so he's gonna try to get his students to listen to, his version of philosophy. It'd be interesting if he was like outsourcing videos of other people whom he thought fulfilled the philosophy school as, excellent examples of philosophical commentary that he already finds online. Like what videos would Eric traffic through his school? Curious.
And it's a matter of motivating people to get involved. I don't know exactly how to do that, but hey, that's the way it works. You can get a lot of views and a lot of popular support for promising big, dramatic, harmful things. But when you go out and promote, you have to work hard, you have to study, you have to read a book, you have to, get out of your destructive habits, then you don't get such a warm reception. That's human nature. So that's what you're up against, and it's you as an individual. Are you putting your work into something real? If you want to support my work, you can contact me, you can get involved. We have a website. I still haven't made a video talking about it. I will soon.
Get a hold of mine.
But yeah, you can talk to me, you can come on my Discord, support me on Patreon. I would like to not just have this website, but also a real school somewhere. I think that's a productive step. It's achievable. It doesn't require even all that much initial investment. It's something that we can do. But if you want to go blow up railroad lines and blow up bridges and hope for revolution, you do you, but I don't think it's going to pan out. So thank you for listening.
Well, see, now that's really interesting. He's anti-Luddite. He's really impressing the idea, like, hey, we don't want the military might. You guys don't know what you're doing. Think about it. Plus, you cause all of us, pop bears and mom bears just struggling to get along, a whole fucking fuckload of upset. So get your shit together, and whatever this other guy's saying, fuck them. But it's almost just the mere fact that Eric makes this video, is responding to this datum set of this other guy, that he's taken this other guy's little molehill of a movement as something to put in check, criticize, but move forward. Did you meet him in person, or did you just have a personable meeting? Anyway, no biggie there. Okay, let's go here now, as it's a talk in paint. Let's go here for just a smidgen.
Senior, as president, pushed through really important legislation that said, basically, if you cause an oil spill, you have to put everything back to zero. You have to put it back the way it was.
Okay, I'm just gonna get this at a reasonable, hopefully a reasonable speed.
Those fines, just straight application of our laws, should have brought BP up to more around the range of $200 billion, which meant...
So they're critiquing the BP oil spill. It's about a little more, probably closer to 2/3 than it is to, I guess, anyway, it's called Empirefiles, The Tyranny of Big Oil. And I'm 10 minutes in out of a half hour. Of course, I'm speeding these up, so you guys don't have to stay so long. Something to listen to. This particular video is just easy listening. You can lull yourself to sleep listening.
That it would have really challenged its ability.
If Joe Rogan isn't doing it for you anymore, the big knucklehead.
As a company to continue operating, and that's not what happened. So BP did face a very big fine, but in BP's own words, it was manageable. And so it definitely very much brings to mind the power of the banking sector, which is, are these companies just so big, so powerful, that they are bigger than the government's capacity to control them? And actually, if you look at U.S. history, we've faced this position before. And in response to this, the control of these companies over the Senate, we had the populist movement in the United States. We had mass protests and uprisings and shutdowns and people in the streets and people demanding change. And we actually did get not revolutionary change, but regulatory changes. And we...
Oh, wait. Is Donald Trump not a populist? Well, he's claimed to be. Are these changes that he's making revolutionary? I'd say reeling back, like maybe de-revolutionary, but nonetheless a revolution, a full rotation to take us back to a more discrete line or barrier post-war, a definition of what makes up Mexico and what makes up the U.S. There's echoes of the Mexican War, and then there's echoes of other idealism that seems as if it's from another time than my short time on this planet, and it seems as if it's going against maybe the more liberal sense of the way I was raised as well. And I'm raised in Utah.
We got our first antitrust laws, and the first focus of the antitrust law was breaking up the Standard Oil Company with the very specific intention that it needed to be smaller so that the government could be bigger than it. But all those pieces of the Standard Oil Company are names that are going to be familiar now. They were Exxon, they were Mobil, which is now ExxonMobil. They were Chevron, they were Texaco. Those are now Chevron, Texaco. All the sort of pieces of Standard Oil have been allowed to morph back together and form these massive major companies. And BP is actually an example of that because BP only came into the United States by buying Arco, which was a major U.S. Oil company, which also was a spin-off of Standard.
The growth of monopolies in the late 19th century was answered by an anti-monopoly movement, by both populist farmers driven into abject poverty by monopolies, and sectors of the capitalist class that wanted a fair fight. Politicians were further enticed by antitrust laws through their application of breaking up labor unions, which they described as human cartels. By 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil had to be broken up to restore competition in the industry. The initial breakup of Standard Oil's monopoly was of no bother to Rockefeller. He was soon after crowned the richest man in the world's first billionaire. A billionaire at a time when the average annual income in America was $520. While sitting idle in their mansions, the Rockefeller family had unprecedented wealth poured in their bank accounts. Most of the global industry owned by just three pampered bloodlines: the Rocks, Rothschilds, and the Dutch royal family. Standard Oil was broken up into 34 independent companies. But in a generous gift, every Standard Oil owner was promised part of each of the new company formed. But the antitrust laws were only a reset button. Those 34 new companies set out to eat their competition just as before. After being knocked into pieces, the oil monopoly golem began to pull itself back together. When something, anything, threatened total dependency on oil, they went after it. The landscape of America's cities have been defined by their decades-long fight to strangle any mass public transportation plan. For example, an entire system of electric streetcars were sabotaged and destroyed by General Motors and Standard Oil, for which they were found guilty of conspiracy in 1949. The industry has amassed so much oil now regulates.
So a Luddite in what she's describing, a Luddite might be a corporation that's burning off its inventory, right? Could scapegoat the shit, but just propagate something like its own burning off its inventory, like you say, right? But then propagating it as a Luddite action of rebels. So this would be like a corporate insurrection that takes on some sort of information role that even the left would have to be and the right would have to be familiar with the idea that this phenomena of companies to do this is occurring as well. Kind of like even these hurricanes coming in. Like if someone has an old car and they got insurance on it, fuck, maybe they'll blow it up or do something that, like purposely sabotage it somehow, right? This is the same way she's describing corporations. In this case, BP Oil. The implication of this is that some of these corporations like Twitter and Facebook and Google have even a greater power than oil companies. But I don't know if this goes to there.
It's the government. The U.S. military is the world's biggest consumer of oil and its biggest polluter, yet it stands shielded from regulation. From the Clean Water Act to the Clean Air Act, nearly every large-scale piece of environmental legislation includes sweeping exemptions for dirty energy. A predictable outcome for an industry that's mastered the dark underbelly of DC bribery. The two are so cozy, 3 out of every 4 dirty energy lobbyists used to work in government. More than 430 congressmen have become industry lobbyists. But the corruption doesn't get more blatant than at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, Regulation, and Enforcement, where more than a dozen former officials went on to make 6-figure salaries in big oil. Everyone gets perks for playing the game. Over $35 million will be stuffed into the pockets of 2016 candidates alone by the toxic industry. But the cost hasn't gone unrewarded. For years, big oil has greased industry executives into the highest levels of government to ensure oil remains at the forefront of U.S. energy policy.
This was recorded on January 15th, 2016. The Empirefiles, space, capital the, capital tyranny, lowercase of, capital big, capital. I don't want to link it.
The Bush family dynasty is one of oil, and both presidential administrations did everything in their power to line the tar-filled pockets of oil CEOs. From former Halliburton CEO Dick Cheney running an energy task force to Condoleezza Rice sitting on the board of Chevron, Tens of billions of dollars of tax breaks and subsidies were given to toxic oil and gas corporations, streamlining their plunder.
Then who does Donald Trump play? Position. Exxon Oil CEO.
Planet. The relationship's mutually beneficial, evidenced when Shanny raked in $40 billion for Halliburton's spin-off KBR and no bid contracts to rebuild Iraq after he bombed it. Under Obama and an array of newly available drilling opportunities, the U.S. has become the world's top oil and gas producer. Number one new source of super profits became fracking, a highly destructive and dangerous method of natural gas extraction.
Because of the speed with which this production has come in, North Dakota went from a state that basically wasn't producing oil to being the second largest oil producing state in the country. It's mass infrastructure moving in. So what happened was that North Dakota suddenly became a mass fracker, and in North Dakota that means an enormous amount of flaring, which are the huge bursts of flames that come out of the ground that are burning natural gas off at the source. And you had what was beautiful land, buttes and wild mustangs, and an area that's a Native American reservation where communities lived for a very long time, just now turned into a frack zone. In Oklahoma, you have 600 earthquakes that have happened in the last year in one state. So that's 3 a day. People have never had oil production. Suddenly there's oil, and suddenly there's 3 earthquakes a day because of the consequences of the fracking. It's the dumping of the wastewater that leads to huge impacts on the earth, and then it leads to earthquakes. And so you're starting to see, though, whereas in other countries where people have spent a long time being exposed to oil production and the harms of oil production and have resisted, in the United States, oil production tended to be very isolated. But now it's everywhere.
With oil's expanding wealth comes expanding power for its owners.
Oil is the political process. There's not influence. It is the political process. I mean, we saw, for example, during the Bush administration that the oil industry was our government. There was no difference. Now it's more subtle, but the influence of energy is powerful and still there. It's just more complex how it operates. If you look at for example, the Republican Party right now, you have every presidential candidate, endorsing the XL pipeline, more than endorsing, falling in love. I mean, Ted Cruz actually said, you have to love the XL pipeline. He sends Valentine's to a pipe, right? I mean, this is how extreme it's gone. So that they're kissing the pipeline, they're loving the pipeline. Like, why? And the answer is a 4-letter word, KOCH, the Kochs. Now, follow how this operates and how this affects our foreign policy. Okay, the Kochs big refinery. They bought a big refinery on the Gulf Coast of Texas, and they were losing a fortune because even though it's in Texas, they can't use Texas oil. And so what they had to use was heavy oil. They could only get it from Venezuela. They charge a premium. It used to be a discount. So they had to get rid of Chavez, Maduro, and that progressive government in Venezuela. They could either do it by assassination, as Pat Robertson suggested, that didn't work, or they can manipulate the country's political system. That may work or may not work. But all else fails. Get the oil from somewhere else, Canada, at a super steep discount. That gives you the XL pipeline. The Kochs don't own the pipeline, but they're the ones who get the oil. Each Koch brother will make about $1 billion extra a year if the XL pipeline goes through. Now, you say, well, what about the Democrat side? There's an opposition? Well, yes and no. The Democrats have their own alliances, like with BP and the current administration. So, for example, President Obama, let's not cook the planet. Global warming is a terrible threat to everyone. And yet, he approved drilling in the Arctic. I was up in the Arctic Circle, actually, where they're going to drill at Kaktovik. And I was called up by the Inuit speakers. Etok, the great whale hunter, and he said, look, we're done. We're finished as a people.
Okay, so how does a government deal with the contradiction? Right? Like, hey, we need the oil, right? And we got to get it from somewhere. And so Obama will talk out one side of his mouth and then behave on the other in what would be a very slow, methodical presidential move, where Trump just clownishly spitballs, just whatever the fuck he wants to say about this and that, and call China the enemy and then good people, and that kind of thing that then later, now in 2019, September 2019, he says, "Oh, this is the way I negotiate." Right? It's a negotiating tactic to run a contradiction. Right? So, what you're being fed and what the government actually has to do to keep everyone alive and keep shit going, those can run contra to one another, and they will. Whoever's running this show, like somebody's paying the price, so to speak, somewhere, somehow, so it would seem, for one's benefits in life. There's a history of like inherited wealth. There's a history of transfer of positions, transfer of assets, and then there's what's going on while one is alive. Shut up until I have a point.
Nature here. I mean, and also if you have a spill in the Arctic Ocean, it goes onto the ice cap to Norway. There couldn't be a dumber, stupider, more dangerous, poisonous idea than drilling in the Arctic, and yet you have a Democratic president that approved it. So that only happens because you had a tremendous influence by BP and Shell in the current administration. The Kochs have tremendous influence, mostly on the Republican side, but they are not Republicans. The Koch oil is not a Republican operation. They are for Kochs, and it's they don't bet on the horses; they own the whole damn ring.
Of course, the majority of scientists in the world have agreed to the consensus of human-caused climate change or human-exacerbated climate change. Americans seem uniquely ignorant in this analysis. I want you to kind of analyze how the media disinformation.
Yeah, like once again, if one wants to think like, well, hey, God wouldn't allow us to poison ourselves, right? You reduce it to humans. You actually believe in something pragmatic, right? You believe in chemicals in the air. You believe in particulate per number of particles in a certain domain being assessed, right? So we have machines that can tell what chemicals are in the air. Right? So that being said, it would seem to me, right? It would seem to me that since cows, when you leave an engine rolling, even if you can get that exhaust pipe kind of low, like a lot of cows and farm animals, if you go park this vehicle I'm talking about on a farm, they don't really like go out there and try to suck on the tailpipe like humans might do to cigarettes. In case you guys didn't know, holding a cigarette, I'd say, is a human bad habit, and most animals, I would say, aren't using synthetic and/or synthesized groups of shit in order to inhale carbon monoxide from the back end of the car, because it's unintuitive, right? So if you don't believe in climate change, the way Trump is, okay, we're basically totally deferred the question just a few days ago, right? Late August 2019. He's deferring, hey, what do you think about climate science? He's being asked with regards to the economy. And all Trump could say is, hey, we're not going to give up our economy. It's going too well. But once again, I think it's called apotheosis, right? Is a not speaking on in order to say something like, hey, I'm not going to talk about the crimes this person committed, right? And so an apathetic notion is that he wasn't speaking on it, so there was neither a affirmation nor denial on the matter. It was a sidestep. Okay, back to this.
Information campaign works on up a lot of academics. Almost every biologist in America is on the payroll of British Petroleum through a $500 million grant to the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory. Controls almost all the science of oil spills. Now what's happening with climate science is, again, it's not just air pollution, it's money pollution of science. So they'll take a dissenting scientist and they will blow up their stature.
The Death Star.
Earlier when you said National Petroleum Radio, of course you're talking about NPR, and this is the most amazing report ever, right? In the wake of the BP oil spill, they have on the scientist who's talking about, don't worry, the oil is just going to be eaten by oil-eating bacteria. And talk about that specific report and what's behind it.
$500 million dumped into the Lawrence Livermore laboratory, and those scientists under Livermore's control took over the airways. Obviously, BP worked very hard to get their guys out there, and never on NPR, which was leading this charge that Mother Earth cleans itself, never once did I hear that these guys were paid for by British Petroleum. That's important. Ivor Van Heerden, who was head of the Hurricane Center at Louisiana State University, after Katrina, he said the reason why this city was underwater was because the oil industry had destroyed the mangroves. All the drilling and dragging of drilling rigs, etc., had basically destroyed 100 miles of swamp protection. People say, why do people live in New Orleans underwater? Well, the Gulf Coast was brought to the edge of New Orleans by the oil industry. Van Heerden had raised the alarm. 1 month before Katrina drowned New Orleans, he said this city could be underwater in 30 days. 30 days later, it was underwater. He said that on British television. He was right. Instead of building him a statue and saying, thank you for telling us, trying to save this city, they shut down the Hurricane Center. Can you imagine Louisiana shutting down its Hurricane Center, and they replaced it with a wetland center? What was going on here? They got a check from Chevron Oil. Chevron said, we will pay for and fund a giant center, academic center, if we get to pick the professors and close down Van Heerden and his Hurricane Center. So Louisiana State University lost its Hurricane Center, if you can imagine, for this oil company basically propaganda forum where the oil companies literally pick the professors. Remember, we don't have an investigative media in America. Our reporters don't go after facts. They're not reporters, they're repeaters. Instead, what they do is they say, well, on one hand this, on one hand that. Well, some scientists believe that the Earth is getting hot and we're doing this to Mother Earth. And then there's some guys who say no. And they don't bother to tell you that those guys who say no are on the payroll of the oil companies.
We don't have time for the super elite at the helm to suddenly care about the environment.
See, I don't know if his critique, being 3 years old, is like a good critique of what's happening actually in like modern journalism or journalism since Trump's been elected, just because it's gone through a lot. So anyway, this has reached about an hour. Who wants to sit through a whole hour of me painting this here paint and talking about stuff that I'm hearing about? And you guys are like, man, that artist has that political view, or he rambles like a yep and yep. It doesn't know what the fuck he's saying. He's probably ripped on something. He's probably too focused on his painting to say anything significant, to be of interest. Even though the that D minus and D plus statistic on the I think YouTube has something called Social Blade. There's a company called Social Blade that just mentioned to me within the last so many hours, and apparently my channel is a D plus in the ratings, which is fine. I mean, look how low level it is. Look at the level of impact that I don't have. My channel's so low, even if I affect 5 of you, I have 0 impact. Even if I influence 5 viewers this far, I have 0 impact. I get enough rating. And the phone concurs. Yep, Mike, you're as unpopular now as you were in the 3rd grade. But the thing I found out is that on the front end, one of my videos said I had 29 views, and on the social site it said I had like 800 and something views. And I thought, well, since in my last video I was like talking about 888 million, which I think is, what is that? Let's look close to 1 billion. Anyway, never mind. Back to Back to whatever these guys are saying for a bit. Paint and talk time. There we go.
Drastic, immediate action is needed to intervene to turn around the situation.
The United Nations last year came up with its most definitive statements on what was needed to basically avert the worst consequences of climate change. And the action that was made very clear was that 3/4 of known existing fossil fuels need to stay in the ground. That's it. That's the only way, not to avert harm caused by climate change, not to avert the problems that we're already experiencing, but to avert the worst predicted consequences of climate change. So that means that where we need to start from now is that the resource needs to stay in the ground.
But the Empire is doing the opposite of that, chasing profits at any cost. 20,000 oil spills are reported each year in the United States alone, not to mention millions of gallons spilled across the world in once pristine habitats like the Amazon rainforest. In the Niger Delta, they have had the shocking equivalent of an Exxon Valdez spill every single year.
You just gotta love the way Abby Martin talks, because she sounds like she's having an orgasm when she talks about some of these like huge, treacherous things. I can only imagine like just like giving it to Abby. It's like, well, she's ready to come and making certain she's like agreed in our marriage sex contract that she's going to speak politically, passionate while she's
Here for the past 50 years, courtesy of untouchable overlords like ExxonMobil and Shell. More oil spilled from train crashes in 2013 than in the previous 4 decades combined, where more than 1 million gallons of crude oil spilled from derailed train cars across the country. In 2014, the number hit another record high. Yet rail remains the #1 preferred mode of transportation for oil companies. Hundreds of thousands of miles worth of pipelines traverse the length of the U.S., a stretch of ticking time bombs of potential disaster run by unregulated cost-cutting owners. Between 2008 and 2012, over 500 oil industry workers lost their lives in on-the-job accidents, a rate 8 times the average of other industries. So much detriment for a resource that's not even necessary. If this system put the needs of people and the environment first, there would be little dependency on such a damaging fuel source. Stanford engineers have already developed a cost-effective, state-by-state plan to transition the entire...
Actually, I don't want to sum her up that everything she's saying just because she's impassioned by it is necessarily, transferred in my mind as a sexual metaphor of coming in just this particular emotional state. I don't even know Woody. I'm just saying, it came to mind. Maybe it's the painting. Could be the painting I'm working on. Who knows all the variables that are moving my psyche and my words to say such hedonistic, semi-sexist, desirous, carnal things about Abby Martin, intellectual woman on the webs.
Entire U.S. to all renewable energy sources by 2050. The cost of the Iraq war alone could have covered all global investments in renewable energy needed to halt...
Is it fair to call me a sapiosexual? Like, can I get away with being a sapiosexual?
Climate change trends. We see that big oil can buy the politicians who regulate it, have the military pledge allegiance to its interests, be shielded from pollution restrictions, leech off U.S. tax dollars, control mass media, crush alternative energy, and avert punishment for all of the crimes it commits. It is utterly insane that small boardrooms of self-serving billionaires are empowered to act as though the only future that exists is in their stock portfolios. They've been destroying lives and habitats for over a century, and now their unfettered greed is a threat to human civilization itself. Their path toward a tar-covered, uninhabitable dystopia won't be reversed unless the power structure is flipped. We can't fight the rule of oil tycoons without fighting the system of corporate empire that dutifully serves them.
I say, okay, I like, Sarah Silverman for her comedy. She's very seductive. I desire her because of how amazingly witty she is. And Abby Martin for her politics. Any other, certain other people give me all one way or another too. Yep. All right. Next, Chris Hedges. All right. You guys might be able to help me get through this painting.
appeared before the Congressional Committee to tell what I knew of activities which might lead to an attempt to set up a fascist dictatorship.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it, and he took the step without approval from either the U.S. Congress or the people of the United States. Secret organizations of the power elite are no longer secret. Known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
I'm Jim Tucker of Chase Bilderberg. 30 years. I will never give up the chase. Bilderberg plan for the whole world is nothing less than world government.
They're not government plan at all. Who elected these guys to run the planet?
They are the elitists. They feel they should run the world for their own selfish interests.
Now we can see a new world.
You know, think about Trump at the G7 talking about wanting Russia there, butting up with Macron in France, right? Talking about setting the stage for the next one in Miami at a very rich villa, which, you know, fine, whatever. But the response, and, you know, maybe China was there. I don't think they were, because they were speaking about how Europe and the U.S. might be, like, I don't know, producing greater allyship in terms of trades and tariffs and bargaining and so forth relative to transfer of goods from Europe to the U.S. To offset or to allow a greater leveraging power play against Trump's current tariffs against China. Mind you, I don't know how everything's going to unfold from September 3rd, 2019 today forward, such that looking back on this statement in the future might seem way out of line.
Coming into view, a world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order.
Bilderberg is making great progress toward a world government, and only an educated, informed public can stop them in their tracks.
Rockefeller admits in his own memoirs that he wants to destroy the United States. He's a traitor!
It's getting back at the Council on Foreign Relations, as Pete mentioned. I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
I need you to move up, Bob.
Some shots were fired.
Bilderberg trying to. The Trans-Texas Corridor is a vital part because we stop here in Texas. We stop the new world order right here in Texas. This thing started here. And to save this country, we kill this damn thing here. There is a chance for the President of the United States to carry out a phrase his father used, and that is a new world order.
Your new world order will fall. Humanity will defeat you. The answer to 1984 is 1776.
In the near future, Earth is dominated by a powerful world government. Once free nations are slaves to the will of a tiny elite.
I'm not. This isn't Chris Hedges. We've been listening to Endgame with Alexjones, which, you know, hey, it's not bad. It's 2013, looks like, Endgame. Let's back this up, see if there's anything recent. Nope, it's not either. Well, let's just pause here for a moment.
what I think about is how can I make clothes that are going to make women feel like the most version of themselves. And all you want when you're putting something on is to feel the most feminine, the most seductive, the most powerful, strongest version of you. And I definitely think our clothes are transformative. I am from Paris. My dad is French, and my
are all aesthetics to make women feel strong. Yeah, I really want to put off this notion that I'm very strong. As a feather, as a flower, like a strong flower.
Mom is Chinese American, and I grew up basically a little French boy. Fashion is such a big part of being French, and it's such a proud sort of heritage of French culture. So growing up in Paris has really informed my taste and who I am as a person. But I don't know that I thought growing up I'm going to be a fashion designer. There were people in fashion that I looked up to growing up. I loved Tom Ford and I loved Gianni Versace. I think part of what initially inspired me was that they were gay men, honestly. And I didn't really know gay people growing up. The worlds that they were creating, it really spoke to a lot of my aspirations, and I think it still kind of does to this day.
Those damn blue collar tweakers, they're running this here town. We'll sit back and grab a cup of joe. Let the wheels go round now. These damn blue collar tweakers, they're running this here town.
Because I hadn't gone to fashion school.
A lot of presumption on what people believe make up their community. I think people that speculate have a lot of presumption about the inner workings of other people. Generally.
I felt like I didn't know a lot of the basics, so I went to work for a French pattern maker in New York, and that's where I really learned how to drape, and I learned pattern making, and I credit so much of my knowledge to those experiences.
That's why I'm so knowledgeable about this. Maybe I get a commercial. It's something like that fashion. All right. Well, anyway, I like artists, but self-loathing artists, maybe only a little bit. Who knows these things? Just kind of keep tapping away here a little bit. Say something or another. I only have so much more time in the old body. And the body starts like since we're not actually as of yet having civil war. Even though my windows, I have like bullet hole, I have one bullet hole in this one, BB hole, bullet projectile, exterior of a dual pane, exterior pane, BB holes, 10 of them in my back room. One of them did crack the inner pane, and found out kind of what's up there. So that's the closest thing to war. Okay, someone shooting at the house. So I'm not digging on that. And anyway, what can I tell you guys about what's going on with me? I'm kind of keeping a lot reserved lately. I'm having some a little bit of existential, maybe you could even call it like theological crisis. But somehow I'm also put at ease. Because I've gone through so much crisis, and I have that whole once saved, always saved sort of mentality. But all these Protestants have this born again Savior thing, and I can identify with that. Like, I'm listening to the Quran, not constantly anymore. I got more to listen to, but about probably 3/4 of the way through it, and it's very interesting because in the Quran, basically, they're suggesting that all evil that occurs is stemmed from the self. Now, one thing I can do here, there was this video I was listening to prior to Eric's video, and this is Shanny for Christ. Yeah, Shanny for Christ, and
What does that
Rev.
mean?
Right, so
Why is he talking about molesting watermelon, Shannon?
And this is, I think their video paused there, right? And it's called "People Are the Problem." It's Shanny for Christ. It's dated today, which is the 3rd of September, 2019. That's Shanny space capital 4, no space capital Christ. All those interesting.
I have no words.
Or honeydew?
I have no words.
Or cantaloupe?
I have no words.
Oh my God, I went to the farmer's market to freaking break melons.
My God. My God.
My God.
That's bestiality, G-Man. That's bestiality. Don't you know you're related to a watermelon?
Wow.
See now, so because of the stereotype that black folks like watermelon and purple drink and chicken and shit like that, and some of it might be true, and the stereotypes might be true. She just said you're related to a watermelon, but then again, these guys apparently lived with G-Man. G-Man's he's a darker toned fella, right? And anyway, that being said, yeah. One weird thing about certain kind of Christians, like these guys critique other Christians. Like they're a little pissed off. She's like pissed off. These Christians, and yet, being around Mormons have this like graduated notion of approaching Christ with all of your deeds and doings, such that like Rev smoking would be pushed away. You'd be like. There'd be an attempt to make your behavior and your words as clean and pure, so you're not cursing like a sailor, sort of thing. You're not devastating or intoxicating the body. You kind of reached a position of what do you call it? Purity, piousness. One might apply those words to non-Mormon, non-Amish esque type of Christians. Apply it, between the Episcopalians and the Methodists and the born again, the Baptists, and whatever these guys are wrapping up. These guys are good at quoting Bible stuff. Or, these guys Bible stuff. Anyway, this is the Rev we're talking about back to you.
There's also a leprechaun video. Leprechaun.
A leprechaun video.
G-Man going, I'm the leprechaun.
Oh my God, we're gonna get in so much trouble over this shit.
I'm the leprechaun.
Like, he's just gonna go on Rage Fist with us. Like, yeah. Hi, Primitive Bob.
I'm the leprechaun.
Like, and it's just like, dude, just shut up. And he just keeps raging. And you tell him to shut up again, and he continues to rage. And then he calls you, like, you're of Lucifer and of Satan, and he continues to rage. And then he tells a bunch of lies about you, and then he continues to rage. It's just a never-ending cycle with that man. And it doesn't matter if I don't mention him, if I mention him, if I kind of, like, underhandedly shade him. It don't fucking matter. He never...
See, now the interesting thing is that Rev's always been like kind of a diplomat and kind of even things out sort of guy. Very ardent about his Christendom. Very, very ardent and thoughtful and considerate. And yet it's not, he is critiqued for smoking, dressing in goth. Basically, the idea that somehow God cares about your fashion statements and the notion that what comes out of your mouth is and or is not, but in Christian sense, like you're defiled more by what you speak than what you consume, and then the companies that you keep, and yet so Revelation news, get it? Revelation, Bible, Revelation, Revelation. And then Shanny for Christ. See how they're connected. These guys are kind of coupled up, I guess, somewhere in Denver. Anyway, it's also like a show. It's fun. They're not extra super serious.
Goes the fuck away. He's like fucking Freddy Cougar. You mention his name, he comes back. He always comes back. I don't know what I'm talking about. Random stuff. People are the problem. Life would be better if there was no people in it. You know that meme where it's this house on this like little tiny island and it says because fuck people. That's where I'm like been permanently at for the last couple weeks.
Well, you're going the Gary Amendment route. Basically.
I am going the Gary Amendment route.
People should die.
Yeah, just aliens just take all these fuckers down here. I don't give a fuck. Just fucking take them.
Wow. That's wrong.
They're dickheads.
That's pretty wrong.
But that's how I feel lately. It's just like constant bullshit with people. Constant.
Could somebody tell me where it is in the Bible that you can't have a joint?
Oh my god, honey, no.
See, not too long earlier in this video, I think I was watching it earlier, right? Like we're like this, like 32 minutes in, of like an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. Yeah, they were defaming the idea of arguments, like those who argue are in their head, and they're not like, they didn't say this, but something like, they're not being faithful because they're using arguments, and so they were defaming debaters or debate itself. And then now listen to them.
We're not going there. But there isn't anything that says it.
You can have every reader. Thanks, Bella.
Alright, what is this? This is the leprechaun one?
Yeah.
Alright.
See, Rev is about the size of a leprechaun. Like he's a pretty tiny fella. He's a smaller human male. What you say you were Irish?
I'm reading a leprechaun. I'm reading a leprechaun.
Raping a leprechaun.
Raping a leprechaun. So Jamie likes raping leprechauns while molesting watermelons. No wonder he likes me.
Shanny's
I'm Irish and juicy.
That explains a lot.
Oh, I know. He's got to tug my hair a little bit. He's retarded. Yeah. Not interested. Not interested. The more you keep talking to me, the more I'm going to think you're coming on to me. It's going to be permanent. I know raping leprechauns is mad rude, man.
It's kind of a funny stream. I'm not really.
I love that. Add the Holy Spirit inside you.
Yeah, they've been my like favorite. I had subscribed.
I know. What did the leprechauns do to you? Why would you do that to the leprechauns?
Maybe I should subscribe.
What's up, Bruce?
No, you won't get removed, Bruce. There's going to be none of that. Ridiculousness.
We just chilling, dude.
Yeah.
We're just chilling, man.
Ridiculism.
Who's going to come out for our wedding in Las Vegas, probably?
No. No. But I will say this. I have been, like, really battling some serious agoraphobia lately.
Chilling.
Like, serious agoraphobia lately. I've been so bad at it. I just don't want to go out of the house and, like, face the world at all.
It's always good to be. I've been seeing what Sam's been like. You, Bruce. Holy crap. God bless you. We love you, Bruce. Bruce is the man.
I don't know, man.
Anyway,
Like, I've changed.
Driving crazy.
I've changed since the last time we went to court. Like, I was, like, sitting there in the courtroom, and I severely, like, convinced myself, I, like, really did legitimately convince myself that I was going to serve a couple years in jail. I, like, convinced myself of that, and I accepted that I was going to serve a couple years in jail. Not because I was guilty, but because, you know, the system trapped me. But I was, like, convinced myself that I'd spend a couple years in jail. And I thought about it, and I accepted that. Like, if it comes to that, I accept it for what it is. You know? So it's like, I changed after accepting that. Even though it didn't happen. It still changed me in a traumatic way. And it's like, I don't even want to go out of the house. I don't want to face the world. Well, I don't like this place anymore. It's bad. It's bad.
We had a major victory last night in court.
Yeah. Well, we can't talk about it.
Yeah, we can't. You're right about that. We have to keep that shit under cover.
Yeah, but we can't talk about it.
Until the end of the trial. Completely.
So,
in terms of the connected humans, like how everything's connected, maybe not like psychically, but like prophetically, like some sort of decoupled from coincidence type of associative coincidence, like a metaphor for coincidence, which would be like a diachronic synchronicity or a diachronic coincidence, like, oh, I was just thinking about that a few hours ago, or, oh, you know, last week I thought of that and I hadn't thought of that in 10 years, that type of thing, like like trend lines being recognized just after they crossed, or having some sort of associative relevance in one's mind.
Can I blaze it yet? No. So I've been dealing with a serious depression, agoraphobia, or I don't even know, a case of the fuckets. Like, I don't care. You know, like, it's just to the point in my life where I just don't care. You know, I have random people, hey, did you hear the video that someone made of you, blah, 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 and it's like, I don't care. Let them make that stupid video. I just don't care. Like, why should I care about that? They're dumb. They just say the same thing over and over again. It's like, and only his little legion of dummies believe him.
It's like J-Dub saying that we're irrelevant, and the only reason he said that is because G-Man said it. And he's like,
oh, that hurts, the J-Dub thing, man. And I'm going to call him J-Dub. I'm not calling him John Krishala, because he's being J-Dub.
Jehovah's Witness?
He, like, straight up fucking backstabbed me, dude.
Hey, Brent, why don't you get your son in order?
Oh. Your son is, come on, no.
Your son is out of order.
No, let's not bring Brent into this shit, because he's just boring.
He's taking that. No. He took the role.
Yeah, well, it's not Brett Keen's responsibility for J-Dub to man up. And realize he really is putting his feelings on me like I was his girlfriend and I wasn't his girlfriend.
Oh my god.
Like it really, it feels like he broke up with me or something, and he's trying to get breakup revenge. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Do I want to linger on this?
Benny.
Video?
I thought Benny the Gangster was J-Dubs.
No.
So Benny the Gangster is legitimately a guy from Sweden or something.
Okay.
J-Dubs is probably sick and tired of Benny the Gangster because Benny the Gangster sometimes has clips of J-Dubs' voice and he plays them, making like he's J-Dubs. Benny is a European. That's what he says, yeah. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Gotcha. Fair enough.
And I know for a fact that J-Dubs is a pervert.
Wow.
Anyway,
A pervert.
yes.
Wow, that's strong language. I need to go. But Rev, when is your thing with Feckle? What channel will it be? It's on my channel. It's on Revelation News, and it's going to be in
Being a pervert
20,
is not really, I
no,
don't think, a crime.
37 minutes. It's at noon, Mountain Time, noon. 2 o'clock Eastern Time. On my channel.
1 Central.
Feckle is live right now, FYI.
And let him be. He's all butthurt, oh, I get to debate Shanny. No, you don't.
We can talk.
No, you don't, bruh.
Could be on the internet if you want.
I don't know. Whatever.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Later, Dice Flow.
Yeah, take care, Di. Yeah, it's an interview and it's live and it'll be archived. It'll be on my channel after it's over, so you can see it.
J-Dubs post porn in freaking Discord.
Apparently, a lot of people do that.
Ew.
Ew.
Later, guys.
I think I'm gonna pause that. It's not doing it for me. Let's see who's outside banging. Some dudes out there banging. This boy throwing some stuff in the dumpster. That's right, guys. I'm so humble. I live close enough to at least hear my dumpster. Can you believe that? Can you believe that's how, on the barrel I am? Wherever I live close to a garbage can. Showing the, part of the class of people downtrodden, not the upper class, not the silver spoons like Trump trying to make deals, causing dissonance in the planet, not like Bernie trying to tax the markets. Look, everything Bernie's wanting, everything Elizabeth Warren's wanting, even what Yang's wanting in terms of the cutting loose money and where to spend it, since it's seemingly like an unaccounted for clumps of trillions of dollars gets distributed. Why not organize that distribution, let it happen? And I mean, if we're going to continue the American Ponzi scheme, on the rest of the globe, then let's invest in the structure that we have to have maintained. And then let's invest in the people and the health of the people, and something that is not necessarily a product of corporatism. I'm all about the advancement of technology, and I know a lot of technology comes from military spending and advancement, but that to me would be a free market argument. Like, let's get the free market in here, and get some of these go-hung capitalists in here to blow smoke up the free market's ass in terms of technological innovation. Well, without necessity and without a lot of finances, the market doesn't seem to yield what the military does yield. It is interesting, like Adam Kokesh, having been in the military, now he's an anarcho-capitalist in some means. Stefan Molyneux has never been in the military, Canadian Mountie Police or anything of that. He's also an anarcho-capitalist. So obviously it's not a requirement, but a reflection of what establishment is, rebels are, dissonance, ideological dissonance. Ideological dissonance is like reading a book. It's gonna migrate your perception, or it should, if you're following along in a book, even novels and such. So, okay, well, this is a pornorific piece, mostly out of my head. I don't know quite how it is I'm going to work on this. I don't know if I want to record anymore because my mind isn't well meditated right now to get to a balanced state to make meaningful or worthwhile commentary, probably at this time, because there's very little interplay amongst possible viewing audience members. Oh, even though, look at that, Benna Barry wrote, "Buddy, hey buddy, whatever you're doing, buddy." At least I got a thumbs up out of it. You know, everyone wants that thumbs up. Fane to move. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Make certain everybody give me a thumbs up. Give me that B+ status on Social Blade. You know, get me out of that. Anyway, so here I am again, swiping oil styles. This one's coming out kind of fluidly. But it kind of reminds me of this guy, oh shit, what was his name? I think it was called like Lip King. Lip King? No, it's not Lip King. It's not Lip King. What the fuck is it? Something like that. Lippen, Stingman, Steichen, Stoken. Anyway, it's this artist, this one painter dude who's got some fairly complementary color brush strokes, using like a lime green mixed here. I strictly to maintain an accent against the redness of the lips and the nose in the shadow area, even though it could probably go for being darkened. So I'm gonna go on that slightly. So probably closer to the purple end here. Not covering it up at all. I'm gonna leave this gap. And I'm not, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just kind of like tapping and going, keeping my mind on something else. Focus on something else to help you get shit done. Something like that. Anyway, I'm just down to one viewer. And obviously, people aren't here for a painting lesson. Or maybe they are. There's one viewer, probably Asa, Barry, or somebody else. It's an old favorite chiming in. I'm trying to see what the fuck's up here on the Dust Poop live channel. You remember I'm running for president. I'm a POTUS candidate. Still working on my Bitcoin portfolio. A little nervous about the whole Bitcoin thing now. Taking for a ride. US is still blocked out of most stuff going on. Although you can trade. If I pony up, just fucking learn to trade in the morning. You can make colossal gains. Take someone like AArvoll. That fucker, if he put his mind to it, he became a trader, he could probably become a millionaire in just a few years, in his spare time, and provide for his family, he's so concerned about, at least financially, before negative interest rates swallow the U.S. up, and we're suffering in some sort of catastrophic Civil War-esque scenario at the beginning of this video. I know, nice to part of it indicates. So anyway, so right here, you guys can't really see it. You can see it backwards. You're looking at the painting, you don't get this mirror reflection. What you got is you got a question mark right here. Right? It's a big question mark. And so somehow I'm going to make that extra profound. Painting. Yes. Oh, question mark. Question mark. Is this a Is this a wang hanging in front of me here? Is that a question? Yeah. Maybe up there is a tip of a penis, maybe. And, is it just not tip of a penis? Just some sort of thing. Anyway, that being said, that deserves a second thumbs up to whoever's watching. Great. Anyway, I didn't know quite how far I was going to take this, but I thought, like, hey, if I fucking record myself, it's a little bit like doing plein air painting outside, where you're looking at the landscape and you're copying it. But here, you know, I'm just kind of working out of my head. I'm working out of my memory, and then I'm just like screwing over the memory for how it is I want the lighting and this paint to kind of start unrolling. And anyway, so there's all that. What it's anyway, gotta figure out how to push my campaign. Maybe this court case that I'm involved in. These guys are involved in their own little court case. I got my own little sub scandals. I gotta that kind of manifest into some sort of shit. It's no good for me. Bunch of tripped up shit that I think, okay, well, I don't really want to talk about it. I'm more or less decompressing from it now. But I decided to paint because, man, I needed to put my mind elsewhere. And like a landscape painting, a plein air painting, where the sun's moving, there's a light that you got to chase. When I'm live, and I know that it's a finite recording, and the people who may be watching, it forces me to project into my concept what this is faster than I would if I wasn't recording. Just kicking around, listening to music or something. So you guys are helping, even if you didn't know it. Stick a thumbs up for the abandonment. Alright, that being said, let me go back to, I think maybe too many of my paintings are based, like I was so heavily influenced by Phoebe in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, exposing her breasts out of a bathing suit, that just can't get enough of some sort of sexualized thing with Phoebe in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, showing her Hispanic-esque American Uber smacks to the camera. Long live the Phoebe Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Yes. All right, folks. Anyway, like I was saying before, I feel like I'm having some theological issues, and I was thinking about Dante's Divine Comedy. Not that I've read it, but my understanding is that the bottom three levels of hell are lust, fraud, and treachery. And I thought, man, I feel like maybe I'm moving into I'm stuck in lust. Maybe I'm moving into fraud. Who knows? But what is treachery? And then I was talking to this lady friend who knows me quite well, and she says, "Oh, you've already been treacherous. So you've already been there. You've already done it. Like a born again. You're already, you're good to go. Like whatever you do, it's supposed to be that way, right? Part of having faith in the Christian God is, hey, it's just meant to be. And part of being Islamic is, if there's evil, it's because you're bringing it on yourself. God doesn't produce that on the outside, so it's stemming from you. So own it. Own your shit. And of course, when you actually hang out with certain Muslims, just a lot of them, they'll give up their idealism in an instant for a buck, for maintenance, especially in the Western world. Secular Muslims, that is, Turkish Muslims, or Afghani Muslims that still join the U.S. military. Okay, that being said, before I ramble incoherently too much, I should probably pull out and call an evening. Anyway, there's the piece as it stands now. Rotation. I kind of like it. Not too bad. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And have a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And have a good night. Thanks for your time and for visiting me and for all the lovely comments you guys always leave on my videos. Filling my comment section page.